Hello, everybody. I am the Orca Man, Fred, and today I'm here with Erica Wirth. She is the host of a podcast called Breaching Extinction, and she is also a naturalist down at a whale watch company in Monterey Bay. Is there anything else that you'd like to introduce yourself with? I'll leave that to you for a
I
second.
feel like that definitely covers the professional stuff. Also, Pom Mom, have a Pomeranian named Peaches. That's always important to add. She will probably interrupt this at some point, so
we love it. If you
let people know.
Yeah, if you haven't yet, follow Peaches Humps on TikTok. I think it might be my absolute favorite account. Not gonna lie.
Yep, I'm a content creator. Not really. My dog. Yeah, the title's pretty self-explanatory. Go check it out yourself, but it's pretty funny. And my dog just does that a lot. So
yeah, what an absolute queen.
Yeah, exactly.
That's too wonderful. Okay, so did you do any naturalist work? We're just gonna jump right into it. Did you do any naturalist work before you went to Monterey?
Yes. So I worked as a naturalist in Washington on Orcas Island for a whale watching company there. I was half kayak guiding and half whale watching. I've worked as like an environmental interpreter though for quite a while, which basically is just like an educator, but like at a zoo or aquarium. And so I started when I was like 14, did a lot of that, but like officially became like a whale watching naturalist in 2019.
Okay. Wow. Well, that's also too. Well, this is going on what, 2 years now or 3? I don't know.
I guess 2019, 2020. I guess like
going
at the end
into
of the year will be like 3 years. Yeah.
Okay. That's one, commend you for that. That's a like decent amount of time in the system already. Also, two, going from 14 in terms of environmental, even just say education at the whatever levels you were at before. That's a lot. Where were you before you went to Orcas Island for that kind of work?
Before I was in Orcas, I was doing an AmeriCorps program in Arizona because at the time I thought I wanted to work with African animals. And I was like, I'm going to get land experience, but my heart really is at sea. And so that didn't work out so well for me. And here we are. But I got started at the Columbus Zoo when I was 14, volunteering and just like doing very basic education stuff. And when I was like 16, they gave me a scholarship to go study polar bears in Canada. And it was like, then that I realized that this is like what I wanted to do with my life, was like something with the environment and like seeing the polar bears in their natural habitat, learning that they were endangered. I was like, this is it. And I've always, just because I started in environmental education, it's always come very naturally to me. So it was always like an easy job to pick up in college. So I was at the Clearwater Marine Aquarium for a bit, and that was probably out of like all the, institutions that I've worked for, I think that one was my favorite. I really like believe in their mission, and they had a lot of really awesome educational programs like that they offer there. So it was pretty amazing. And sure. Yeah, so that's pretty much what we've done.
That's good. For the Clearwater Aquarium, when you talk about their mission with that, what do you like about it? Like, what was it specifically that you saw? You were like, oh, this is fantastic.
So their whole thing is rescue, rehabilitation, and release. So, have you seen the movie Dolphin Tale?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So Dolphin Tale, it's that dolphin, Winter the dolphin. So she's the one that had her tail cut off, and it was wrapped in monofilament, and they rescued her over in Cape Canaveral and then brought her over to Clearwater Marine Aquarium because it was like one of the few places that had space, because in Florida they kind of have a network and they're like, where is the quickest place that we can get this animal? And they sent her there and kind of like built around that. Like they were always like a smaller facility, but she definitely brought a lot of attention to the facility.
Definitely.
And she's the one that's got the prosthetic tail, but they have otters, dolphins, and turtles, and all of the animals that are in their facility are in need of rehabilitation, or if they can't be rehabilitated, they are permanent residents. And Winter is a permanent resident there.
Yeah.
But they have like a sea turtle hospital that you can walk through, and it has like the that glass where it's like you can see through, but the animals can't see you.
Okay.
And I just think that they are very much like on top of their mission of like teaching people about their natural environment, and like they're not shy about talking about the impacts that humans have on wildlife, and like inspiring stewardship. And then another thing that they like do too is a lot of times we would have like disabled veterans or other people with disabilities come in, and they would get to like interact with Winter or like watch her do her swimming. So there would be like there were multiple times at work I would be like in the middle of a task, and I'd look over and there's like some kid or some veteran like interacting with this dolphin, having some life-changing experience, and I'm just like crying in the corner. I'm like, oh my god. But like there were some amazing experiences there. Like I remember hearing a story of like a kid that was completely nonverbal, and like made some sort of noise or something like that when they interacted with Winter. So like I just think that that institution really knows like what it's about, and has a very high emphasis on education and like involving people with their issues. Obviously, like, you know, no place is perfect, but I would say that like that is the standard to hold yourself to, is the Clearwater Marine Aquarium.
That's a pretty beautiful one too, as well. Well, one of the things that you just said there was like, with regard to the start of them really like building up their business, so to speak. Is it a nonprofit?
It's a nonprofit, yes.
All right, so them building up the nonprofit, it was based upon the idea of rescue and rehabilitation. Like from what you said right there, it's like once they started with Winter, it was like, oh no, this is a viable nonprofit model that we can actually do and provide a lot of good for. That's an amazing beginning of an organization that I don't think has been done much at all.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely like around, it was like a very small thing in the beginning, and Winter is what made it bigger. Like, because Winter, obviously, like that's a really fascinating story about a dolphin with a prosthetic tail, you know? And I'm trying to think back to like all the details, and I can't remember all of them, which I should, because I was a tour guide for them. But yeah, I just like, you know, I think it's a great facility. It's definitely a smaller facility, but you know, I think that overall they do a really good job, and it is a really special place to work and to go. And I would highly recommend that anybody who has the opportunity to go do it. And also it's like, if you want to donate to an institution, that would be a great one. So
fantastic. And that's in Clearwater, Florida. Yeah.
Yes.
Beautiful.
Yes.
Beautiful. All right, so fast forward a little bit, and then you get into Canada, which is where I am currently. Shout out the Great White North. Where did you go for the polar bears? And two, let's start there. Where did you go for the polar bears?
So I was 16 and I went to Churchill, Manitoba, Canada, which is the polar bear capital of the world. And it's actually where I saw my first whale. I wasn't expecting to see any whales. We were like walking around this park. We saw like an Arctic fox that was like very curious about us. And then we look off over into the Hudson Bay, and I see all these little white things popping up out of the water. And I asked the guy, I was like, what is that? And he was like, those are belugas. And I start bawling. It was like hundreds of belugas. And I was like, oh my God. But we were there. Yeah. I was like, we didn't see them very close. Like it was just like dots from far away, but nonetheless, it was amazing. And then we were like, we were talking to different scientists. It is a program like for teens. And so I met like, I think about 10 other people there. It was like from different zoos or aquariums, and then like 10 teenagers from zoos or aquariums, and we were called Arctic ambassadors. And basically they taught us about the polar bears and the history of the polar bears and the history of the culture in that area. And we got to interact with some locals and learn about what it's like to live in the polar bear capital of the world, which is cold, of course, but also very interesting, as you might expect. I
can only imagine.
So it's kind of like, it's common there for everyone to leave their car doors unlocked and their house doors unlocked, because occasionally like there will be polar bears just in town and you just need to like get into a vehicle or something to get away from them. And there's actually a rule that you can't dress up as a polar bear for Halloween, because they don't need any mistakes on if it's a real bear or if it's like something else. Yeah.
For
So pretty crazy.
I also can only imagine like the first person that did that something went wrong where they're like, yeah, we can't do this.
Anymore. Yeah. No, that's totally fair. Like they actually have a polar bear jail is what they call it too. So it's this facility in town that when the polar bears wander in, they basically capture them, stick them in this cage, and then like this sounds really mean, but I promise it makes a lot of sense. And like basically starve them for not long enough to kill them, of course, but like enough to deter them from wanting to come back to the area. And then they will basically like tranquilize them, put them in a plane or a helicopter, take them off somewhere else. And one of the guys that worked there said that because like if you give them food, they'll keep coming back. So like that's a very dangerous idea, which is why they kind of do that starving thing, which like sounds mean, but like it makes sense.
All the sense in the world. Yeah.
Yeah. And he said there was like one time that he had 2 polar bear cubs. Like there was a mom in one plane and then 2 polar bear cubs in his little plane. And they started to wake up while he was flying.
Oh God.
And I was like, rip. I feel like a polar bear cub though, like that's definitely less of a threat. Like still
for sure.
is a threat. Like that is like extreme danger. Like small baby bear while we're literally flying. Hello.
Still, like there's not a lot of helicopters that are that big that I can imagine they're renting out for that kind of stuff.
Yeah. It's a whole ordeal up there. Like the polar bears are absolutely a part of everybody's life up there because it has to be.
Yeah.
So it's like it's really fascinating. He even had like the guy that was giving us the tour, he had this truck and there was a big dent in the front, and it was because a polar bear literally charged his car and like jumped on it.
Oh Lord.
I mean, which like if you're an apex predator and a person is like coming for you, it makes sense. Like it does, you know?
Oh yeah. Not a question. And also too, like the guy who's driving, depending on whether or not you're on a road or not, like that's, if a polar bear is coming at you, there's only so much you can do. Like you can't really throw yourself into reverse that fast, especially, I don't know, depending on how fast you're going, whatever. Like that is a maneuver that might hurt you and the bear more.
Right. Almost. Yeah, definitely. So very interesting place for sure.
No, it sounds like it. Also too, it's one of the places that it's interesting because even in Vancouver, I see there's a very distinct, the thing I always tell people when they come and visit it, or even people that I've like seen here for a while, it's like one of my favorite parts about Vancouver, one of the most interesting, is that when you look from Kitsilano or Point Grey, a lot of the beaches along this side of Burrard Inlet across to North Vancouver, in North Vancouver, there's a line of suburbia that ends. And beyond that, it's just forest. But even with that, like as much as there's nothing beyond there except for the North Pole, we as a city don't collectively live within the nature as much as I think we do. Like it's not as much in collaboration consciously at the least. Whereas in some place like the place you went in Manitoba, you're sitting down and everybody's actively thinking about it every time they enter their car.
Yeah. Definitely. Most definitely. Like you always got to be vigilant, you know, making sure there's not a polar bear around.
It's very, very special problems to have at the least.
Absolutely.
All right. So after that, you're like, okay, the sea is the way to go. You finish up high school and then university down with Clearwater, I'm imagining as well.
I went to Eckerd College in St. Pete, Florida. So it was like, that was like the moment I like remember looking this polar bear in the face up to our tundra buggy, stretched her paws out, looks at us, and I'm like probably 4 feet from this polar bear. Oh God. I'm in a safe place, so it's fine. And I'm just like locked eyes with her, and I was like, this is it. Like that was the moment that I was like, there's nothing else for me. And it's kind of funny that like I think it's, I don't know, in a way symbolic that the polar bear was the first thing that I saw, because I've always teetered on I'm a generalist. I love all animals. I've always been a little bit more drawn to marine life, but polar bears are technically a marine mammal, but they walk that fine line. And so I just always thought that was kind of funny that was the beginning of it. But I went to Eckerd College in St. Pete. I studied environmental studies and psychology, and Eckerd was like such a tremendous experience. I was so fortunate to be able to go to that college. It's there's no place like it. It's like a liberal arts STEM sort of thing that focuses on like marine science, environmental studies. That's like their two main programs. And it's a very small school, like 1,800 students, but the amount of opportunities that I had there for research, for study abroad, and like I got a lot of scholarships to study abroad. I loved Eckerd. I like recommend it to like anybody. The only thing with Eckerd is it's so expensive, and I was fortunate enough to get scholarships, but like it definitely is pricey. But
as state schools are in general, like there are states like schools within the states in general.
Yeah, definitely. But it was awesome. I learned so much there. I always like, I did the environmental studies track because I still was like unsure on, I wanted to keep my options open on whether or not I wanted to go into marine science or not, because and I'm sure you probably heard this too, like immediately when you tell people that you want to do marine science, they're like, you can't do that. That's hard. You're never going to make any money. Like just like immediately, like they're like, this is not a real career. And so I definitely kind of bought into that a little bit. And I was like, well, I still want to work with animals. So like, I'm going to play it safe and do environmental studies.
Fair.
And then I did the psychology because, well, I took like one psychology class and then I was like, this is really interesting because we had to take a bunch of like perspective courses. That's one of the other things I loved about Eckerd is like we didn't have gen eds, but we had perspective courses, which made us like very well-rounded students. I feel like you had to take classes from different disciplines. But I took a psychology class. I was like, this is quite interesting. And at the time I was thinking maybe I wanted to be a zookeeper, some kind of animal trainer, which, a lot of us want that at some point and learn that we don't want that actually. But a lot of people major in psychology. So I was like, cool, I find this interesting. And like, potentially this will help me get a career somewhere else. Definitely. And I absolutely use my psychology degree, but not in the way that I thought. I was like expecting to be like training animals, but now it's like, I go and I observe animal behaviors. And, also I feel like I use my psychology degree more so to analyze human relationships with animals and like human relationships with the environment as a whole. So ultimately I'm very glad that I did both of those majors.
Oh, that's huge. Well, we'll move on to one of the first things that comes to mind when you're talking about the psychology there. After, going on 3 years now for environmental education as a like professional career, so to speak, and doing it before, with regard to the psychology, right? Like you have to have seen more than like 10,000 plus people that are beginning to enter into wildlife spaces and seeing how they view it, which is gotta be like absolutely incredible to see like so many different entrances into the realm, so to speak. Right?
That it is for sure. When I was on Orcas Island, it was almost all tourists. And most of them had never seen orcas before. Like most people had never seen whales, and they were just excited to be there and like very fascinated. Like most of the people that we got out there were like brand new to whales. And now I work in Monterey and I have like regular passengers that like come out all the time. And I do think that one of the benefits of so I work for 2 companies here, but for the main one that I work for is that I do have those regular passengers and I really value my time with them. But I definitely get more of a range of people here of like, some people have never seen people have seen whales a million times. And so it definitely is interesting. And I think that can be both the best and worst part of my job.
Yeah.
Because I love when people see whales for the first time and when they're so excited and like, I love it when I just have people that are grateful to be out on the water and grateful to be in nature. And I think that we always have better trips when we do, but I definitely I've become a little jaded and I've noticed that there are a lot of people with very unrealistic, very high expectations.
Definitely.
And I would say that is probably the worst part of my job. Of just some people think that they just expect a lot from the animals and they want to get, they want to get shots of the animals and like, it's
expect more of them than like you or the animals could actively give them. It's just
like I'll have people
unrealistic
be like,
almost.
can I see a blue whale? And I've had that request multiple times. I've been able to fill it once. Because we were watching humpbacks and a blue whale just showed up. And blue whales are pain to watch anyways, because they just like take super long dives. They pop up far away. They're not up very long. They're not very interesting to watch. It's more of a novelty of like, okay, like you see a blue whale.
I saw it, yeah.
But I definitely like, I'll have people like ask me like, when the animals are going to breach, when they can book to see a breach. And I'm like, that's not, no. And it's like, it just like hurts my heart a little bit. And I definitely am trying to be a little bit more patient with this, because some people just don't know and they are just excited. But I like also do experience people who just really feel like they, like if they don't get a breaching animal or a lunge feeding animal, that like their trip is not good. And it's just like,
well, that is about the epitome in my head of commodifying wildlife, outside of actively commodifying wildlife with regards to captivity, right?
Yeah.
Like that's like, no, I am here explicitly for them to do something that I want to see personally. They were like, that is what I'm here for. If you had to see, there are passengers that are phenomenal, and there are passengers that are not the worst, but they're harder to deal with. Definitely. Definitely. If you had to put genres of passengers, who is your favorite person to walk on that boat? And then like down the line, like these people are actually really fun. These ones, like they're neutral. Like if they show up, they're going to have a good time. It's like I can only imagine, like if I bring a friend, they're going to be like, yeah, this is cool. That's what I call neutral.
My regulars are my top for sure.
Okay.
Like, I love all my regulars. I'm like very grateful for them, because like they all understand wildlife. They go out enough with us to know that some days it's like life changing, and other days you just watch a whale sleep or you don't even see a whale at all. Like, and that's just the reality of it.
Definitely.
But I love having them come out, and I would say they're the best. I had a group of Girl Scouts come out with me, a whole boat of Girl Scouts. That would take second place because they were so stoked and just like screaming the whole time. And it was so amazing to see these like 10-year-old girls like losing their minds over these whales. And we had like a calf that just like kept breaching, and I was like, these are the days when we need the calves breaching. These are the people who should see this, like, because they like, and appreciate it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then I also think like Midwesterners, or like people from some square state in the middle who have like not seen this kind of stuff. Like, I'm from Ohio originally, and like, also when we have our like check-in, people's phone numbers are there, and sometimes I'll like notice that like it's an Ohio zip, or what is it called,
area code, whatever
area code. Yeah. And I'll be like, you're from Ohio, like, and I'll be like, all right, we're gonna see some cool things. But yeah, I would say like people that haven't seen a whale, kids, my regulars, and then people who just like are really curious and like ask all of the questions. I love that too. And then like I enjoy, like I definitely voice the unrealistic expectations a lot, but for the most part, I would say like 85% of my passengers are neutral to awesome.
Nice. Like, that's a good amount.
It's just like there's just like a culture around whale watching that I see that it just like feels weird. But yeah, it's like I really don't, it's hard for me to be around people with really high expectations, because it's like, sometimes people like want to get like super close, and I'm like, we can't bless them, sure, but like it's not, that's up to the whale. And so yeah, but I mean, I've also been surprised by people too, where it's like I feel like they're going to be really like, entitled to a whale, and then we like have a conversation and they better understand. But I've just had a lot of experiences, or I've overheard a lot of experiences where people like are like, wanting something else. Like I have a video of a breaching humpback calf, and literally as the calf is breaching, somebody's asking me, when is it typical to see orcas? Like, or would it be likely for us to see orcas today?
Like, come on.
Yeah. So it's just, I don't know. It's just like weird, because I feel like this should be a for fun activity, like learning and for fun. And like, it sometimes isn't. I'm definitely painting a very negative picture right now, but it's not that way. I do have a lot of really amazing days with like really amazing passengers who like I learn a lot from and they learn a lot, and like we enjoy the whales, and like, you know, they leave and they want to help the animals, like, you know, because if the animals are so amazing that, you know, they're inspired to do something about it. So it's not all like that, but I just feel like I've been seeing a lot of that in the last like year or so, and it's
Mhm.
just like something I constantly am thinking about.
I also feel too that as of, I don't know, recent within the past year and 2 years, especially within COVID,
Mhm.
the clientele that are actually making their way out to this kind of stuff is extremely specific. Like there's only so many people that are able to make it out. I can only imagine there are so many people from the Midwest that are making their way out right now. A lot of
Yeah,
kids, I guarantee parents are trying to keep them in as close quarters as possible, so it's not as easy to maneuver
right.
yourself to whale watch or stuff like that, which makes a difference.
Yeah,
With regard
definitely.
to yeah, with regard to the conversations though, is there any one or few that like stick out in your head enough that you would remember them right now?
Like just like conversations with guests.
Conversations with guests where you either helped them, somebody was really really excited for something and you helped them recognize the beauty of just being out in the water in general, or something that the guest, like a guest was able to, you were able to learn from them or otherwise that like
Yeah.
really really sticks out for some reason.
I definitely had like a passenger that didn't quite understand, just because of like he'd seen a lot of breach shots. He was like, I want a breach shot. Like, when can I book for a breach shot? And he asked me like a lot of times.
Yeah.
Um, and I just it like I the lesson that I learned was not to write people off so quickly.
Okay.
I can now see that he was just very excited, and you know, he did keep asking, and the answer never changed. I'm like, just come out until you see it. That's all
Yeah.
we do, you know. And like he seemed to like one of the last times that I interacted with him, be like very understanding of animal behavior and things like that, like telling other passengers, like, because we had a super amazing trip and he was like letting them know like this is not how it always is, and I'm like,
That's awesome.
he's getting it.
Yeah.
So yeah, and like, yeah, so not all the time. Like I definitely, yeah, I've have like I don't necessarily like remember them in the moment, I don't think, like,
Fair.
but I would say probably that one would be like a good example of like, okay, like, because like I definitely have gotten like very jaded by it, because I feel like it's like constant of like, when are the whales gonna breach, or like I want to see a blue whale, or I want
Yeah.
to see a orca, and I'm like, it's not happening. And like, and the thing is like, it's not that like you can want those things and that's fine, but it's when people get upset about it, like genuinely upset, is like where I'm like, ugh. But yeah.
Well, it gets harder because you cannot manage their expectations. All you
Yeah.
can do is like talk to them and feel it out from there. It was
Yes.
funny. I was actually talking with a guy from TikTok who I'm trying to get to come out to Friday Harbor soon. I think he's going to come out in October. And he was at, like, we were originally supposed to do it next week. And he kept like, he said that a bunch of stuff came up in September, didn't end up happening. I told him like the opportunity of us actually seeing orcas is going to be extremely low the further we get into the season. It's like I want to let you know, because if your goal is to come out here and see orcas, then I want to make it the best opportunity that's possible, but it still needs to be understood that that isn't exactly going to happen.
Yeah.
And he came right back and said, no, like it's going to be fun just to be in the place, just to go out
Yeah.
and do that kind of thing in general is going to be enough of a phenomenal experience that it's worth it. And as soon as I heard that, I was like, wow, like even when I first came out to the PNW to try to see orcas, like I didn't have that kind of mindset. And so I really, as soon as I heard that, I was like, wow.
Yeah. No, I think that that's, and a lot of people do have that mindset, which is good. And I definitely like try to set expectations. Like, and I think a lot of us naturalists have started trying to set expectations in the safety chats of like, you know, there's a chance we don't even see a whale today. We're going to see water, we're going to see clouds, and then we can only go up from there, you know?
Definitely.
And you know, it definitely, like, it's an awesome experience when you have those really appreciative people that are just like, I'm just happy to be here. And the thing is, like, we just have to understand, like, you know, that whales, while they are really awesome and do really awesome things, they're not going to do it all the time. And like,
Of course.
they need to rest. And also, like, we are literally going into the actual wild. Like, you can't control that, you know? But yeah, enough about all of that. But like, just manage your expectations, you know, don't expect too much from the animals, because you know, I feel that we're already privileged enough to be out and go to share like space with them.
Yeah.
That we should be as like respectful and grateful as possible in those environments.
For sure. And also too, the gratefulness there, it's like it's half of the appreciation that I've even had walking away from a lot of any experience that I've had, either like on land seeing wildlife or on trips.
Yeah.
Like the gratitude or the appreciation of just like, oh my God, I am in the waters where these are moving through. Especially, so the thing as humans that we don't really think about is that we have the crazy opportunity to move through space kind of unimpeded.
Yes.
Like you're originally from Ohio. If any other animal in the world tried to make their way from Ohio to Florida to Monterey and then like on also to the San Juan Islands, that would be nearly impossible without human help. Like no matter what, like the way that we are able to maneuver ourselves through space is absolutely insane. I don't think people recognize that as much.
Yeah, definitely.
So you also said that when you were in college, you did study abroad.
Yes.
Where was that?
So I studied abroad 4 times in college.
Nice. Well done.
Yeah, Eckerd had a 414 program. So it was like 4 and or 5 classes in the fall semester, a month long, 1 class in January, and then 4 classes to 5 classes on the spring semester. And so the first time I went abroad, it was in 2016. I went abroad 3 times in 2016 and once in 2017. So I did a winter term to Roatan, Honduras, where I studied tropical marine environments, which was so awesome. It was like we basically just like learned about the ecosystem there and coral and the different species that they have. And then we like our tests, like some of our tests, not all of them, but part of them were like going underneath the water, and they would like put like little numbers by like a rock near where coral is, and you had to like go use your little underwater notepad to identify the species.
That's wild.
A lot of fun. And then that following summer, I went to Indonesia on a research grant to go study mangroves. And so we went to a couple different islands. We were there for about 5 weeks. We were collecting data on plots that were previously surveyed in other years, new plots, and they had planted. They were trying to figure out which mangroves, like the species, depth, and elevation that they were going to be best for helping to irrigate fish ponds. And we went to go collect data on that, and then the fishermen had like moved all of the plants around because they didn't quite understand what we were doing. That was inconclusive. But the other ones, we were basically going out and surveying different areas to see, like we were getting basically the height and the species, and we had plot lines that we would go through, and we were trying to determine which ones have the highest level of survivability and which ones are going to do best in those environments. But I mean, mangroves originated from Indonesia, so it was like remarkable. And in Florida, we only had 3 species. There's like way more species in Indonesia. And so that was my like introduction to research. That was my first research project. And while mangroves were not the thing that I wanted to study, I fell in love with the research process there. And like learned that like science was something that I could do. Definitely had heard growing up that it was like really tough and you have to be really smart and special, and like to an extent, but you know, with hard work anybody can do anything that they want, I think. And I
feel like you are one of the major testaments of that, at least of all of the people that I've met ever.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, of course.
I appreciate that. And then from there on, I spent a semester in Tanzania where I studied wildlife management and policy.
Crazy.
And we had class 6 days a week. We had like a 6 p.m. curfew. So it was like not your standard study abroad, like
by no means
Europe sort of thing. We were like in the bush, like conducting different types of research. And I would highly recommend the School for Field Studies to anybody like who has a chance to go, because like they will show you a lot of different research techniques. Like all of us participated in a bunch of different techniques, like interview style research. We also did like different plot lines, track lines, identifying animals. And then I did a behavioral study on baboons. At the end, everybody does their own like independent research project. And that was amazing. And I fell in love with Africa, and I was probably depressed for like 2 years after I came back because I just wanted to go back so bad.
Yeah.
And I like applied to so many things. That's what kind of led me to Arizona to do AmeriCorps, which I would not recommend AmeriCorps. Just I didn't have a great experience. Other people I've heard are not like there are better ways to be more financially stable and get skills.
What if you had to explain to me and the audience right now, because I'm not exactly sure what AmeriCorps is actually.
AmeriCorps is basically like the Peace Corps in the United States in a sense, but basically they give you opportunities to go work in places, and they like house you, and they give you like, I think I had like a stipend of like $200. It was like bi-weekly or every week or something, which is like really not enough to live on, even if like your housing. So it just was like kind of took away like from like the experience, because I had to have like another job. It was like super exhausting. But anywho, not the point. But basically I went to AmeriCorps because I was like, I want to work with African animals, and like this is experience like with a national park on land and like whatever. And so it's funny because like that was really like the only like negative job experience that I had had where I was like, I hate this, you know? And like I would apply to a bunch of things that were like Africa related. I would apply to like 10 things, and I would apply to like one dolphin thing, and I would always get the dolphin thing, and I would always be so annoyed. I'd be like, oh my God, like I should have go to Africa. I know it's such a silly thing to complain about. But now I've just kind of like accepted this is like the work that I'm gonna be doing, and I definitely love it. And like I still love Africa, and I'll probably get back there one day, but just not today, you know?
Well, also too, it's like it's the kind of thing where you say it's one thing to complain about, but also too, you've set yourself up in the situations where that's even possible.
Yeah.
Which it's the biggest thing. The majority of the people that I've talked to in general, it's like a lot of people in the marine science field, you underestimate yourselves with regard to like, it is genuinely impressive. One, the stuff that you've accomplished, but two, like applying to 10, I know college graduates that haven't applied to 10 jobs, like let alone opportunities in different countries, continents, or otherwise. We're like, oh no, I am incredibly passionate about this and I want to go forward. So commend you for that, fucking 1,000-fold.
Well, thank you. I just like, I don't know. I've always been very like driven by animals. Like that's been like the driving force for everything always. And like, I just don't think I could see myself doing like a typical like 9 to 5. Like this is definitely a very like unstable terrain to kind of move through, but I think it's ultimately worth it. And like, I don't know, like when I talk to like family members or friends who are like not in this line of work, they're like, oh my God, you've done more in your life than like most people have, or like you've done more in 25 years than most people have done their whole life. And like,
yes, for sure.
I feel so fortunate to like be in that position. And but that's like the other thing too, is like anybody could do it. And I think you're totally right. Like a lot of people in marine science totally underestimate themselves because the bar is really high. And so like,
and there's always someone doing more. There's always someone doing more.
There's always somebody doing more. There's always like you're never not replaceable.
Yeah.
There's always somebody that's like willing to do your job for less or free, at least for a portion of time, you know? But I think ultimately like it's worth doing. I would love to see like more retention in the field, because like it definitely is hard and it is like unstable and it is expensive to go to school and then take unpaid internships and like do all these things, and it's like nearly impossible for a lot of people.
Definitely.
But I think like, I don't know, I think people need to be like patient with themselves, take their time if they need to take their time. Like there's no rush. Like there kind of is because climate change, but like also like, you know, we'd rather have you be a marine scientist and take 10 years to do that than like, you know, go work for corporate America or something. But yeah, it's definitely, yeah, it certainly is kind of, it's not an easy or stable field.
No, by no means. And also too, or train of thought is absolutely running off the rails. Even so, when you were in, I'm just going to bring it completely back to the next thought I had. When you were in Orcas Island, you had gone there not from Monterey. You had gone there from
Okay,
where?
so here's the line
Timeline,
of,
yes.
we'll just do the timeline.
Let's do it.
Born in New Mexico.
Done.
Moved to Ohio.
Okay.
Did the zoo. Moved to Texas my last year of high school, my senior year. Went to college in St. Petersburg, Florida at Eckerd.
Yeah.
Got my first internship. Well, not my first after graduation internship at Moat Marine Lab with the Sarasota Dolphin Research Project.
Where was that?
What
was
year?
It? Sarasota, Florida?
Sarasota, Florida. Yes. Cool. And then went to AmeriCorps to go do that
in Arizona.
Yeah. Then moved back home for like 5 months.
Home there was Ohio?
Yeah. Okay. Moved back home for a little bit to like regroup, reassess like what is going on.
Yep.
Took a trip to Friday Harbor in March of 2019.
Yeah.
Fell in love with it. Had an amazing naturalist who told me everything that I wanted to know. Like I knew nothing about orcas at the time. And like I remember seeing Stanley. That was the first whale that I saw. We were the only boat on the water that day that saw whales because it was still a little bit early in the season. And then she was also like telling me about how like up there they keep their distance and they do all of these things and how it's like highly regulated up there, which was very appealing to me.
Yeah.
And like, so yeah. And so then I was like, well, I gotta get up here. And I applied to every company. Most of them do their hiring in like November. I'm sliding in like March, like, hello.
Is there any chance?
And there was a chance because some kayak / naturalist person dropped out at the company I ended up working for. They need one more person and they took me. So I moved out there in May of 2019. So I was like, I saw it and I moved out there like 2 months later and then I stayed until December. So I was only there about 6 months.
Yeah.
And like the whale watching there is way more seasonal than it is in Monterey.
Oh, for sure.
And so yeah, so I basically, well, like at the time I was a little spicy and somebody told me that I was not qualified for jobs in Monterey. And so I was like, I need to go prove them wrong. And then I applied, which I was going to do anyways, but like at a later date, you know?
Sure.
And then I got a really spectacular job offer from the company that I now work for. And then I was like, well, it would be dumb for me not to take this. And then I moved here and the rest is history.
Lovely.
And I love Monterey. This is such a beautiful area and such a special place. I mean, Orcas Island was so special and amazing too. But like, you know, I've been pretty transient for the last couple of years. And like, this is the longest I've ever stayed in a place. I have no plans to leave anytime soon. I'm always open to like other opportunities, but I really have fallen in love with Monterey and I do love my job a lot and the community that I have here and the nature that I have here. Like we're like 20 minutes. I'm 20 minutes north of Big Sur, like, and the freaking Monterey Bay is my backyard.
Yeah, you keep on bragging about that one.
I know. It's so nice. But yeah, I think like, and culturally it's a really nice place too. Like just people are friendly. It's a small town, but it's not like kind of
not incredibly small.
Midwest.
It's
yeah. So, but it's excellent. But that's how we got here. And then I've been on the boats for the last like 2 years almost. Gotcha. I don't know. With COVID, I don't know what time is. And like also with this point in the season when it's like you work almost every day, I'm like, I don't know what day it is.
Yeah.
So yeah, but it's been pretty spectacular. And I would say Monterey Bay is like a very special place for whale watching. I would say it's the best in the world. I'm probably biased. But
in terms of consistency, it sounds like it, or consistency. And also too, of everything that I've seen from you being there, like even for the short time that we've known each other, The stuff you've come across is absolutely incredible.
Ridiculous.
Yeah.
Ridiculous. Like in the San Juan Islands, we saw a lot of whales breathing from far away, which is awesome.
Of course.
Like in general. But here, like but that's like the complicated thing with the expectations is because there are some times where it's like I will have 2 weeks straight of a breaching whale every day.
Yeah.
Or I'll have like 2 weeks straight of like maybe we see a whale, maybe we don't. And like you just don't know. But like the action that we get here is like next level. Like we did not get this kind of action up in the San Juan Islands. Like I can think of like 3 encounters in the San Juan Islands that were like, oh my God, amazing. Like that whale got super close. That whale like jumped out of the water, something like that. It's like, I'll probably see a whale breach like a lot. I don't like, I see a humpback whale do something every day. Like there are 5 main behaviors that like I say that, you know, I see out here.
Yeah.
And there have been trips that we see all 5 behaviors, or we see 4 out of the 5 behaviors. And like, you just get so much. And also the bay is very healthy. Like that's the other thing that's like pretty
amazing.
Massive
deal.
Yeah. Because there's a lot of like the Tailless Sea is not healthy. Like, and that's another, yeah. Like that's another reason why I don't want to be up there and like just like, you know, contribute. I feel like, you know, I have the privilege of watching healthy whales and like showing people healthy whales, and I'm going to do that. And keep, you know, if it becomes unhealthy for the whales, then we reassess and go from there. But I mean, the Monterey Bay, like, so in the 1800s, there was this woman named Julia Platt who was the mayor of Pacific Grove, which is the town just south, like one town south of Monterey. Yeah. And she was like, she studied zoology, and basically she couldn't get a job in academia. And so like in the last bit of her life, she became the mayor of Pacific Grove. And at the time, there were a lot of sea otters being hunted. The sea otters actually used to span all the way up to you, the southern sea otters up to British Columbia. And they were nearly hunted to extinction by the fur trade. They could not, you know, reproduce quickly enough for the demand of the fur trade. Yeah. And so that was actually one of the first species to be protected by Julia Platt, which, like, how badass is that for a female mayor in like the 1800s? I mean, late 1800s, but still. Yeah, that's still insane. And she, like, Monterey, I would say that Monterey Bay is a healthy ecosystem because of her pioneering that. Like, you know, she put a lot of protections in. That was her goal. Like, she was very stealthy in the way that she did it. But it sets the standard. Yeah, it sets the standard. And so like today I mean, obviously the numbers are not what they used to be, and I don't know that they ever will be. Of course. But we like, it definitely is a pretty healthy bay for the like compared to other places, you know. Well, also to compare to had she not and everybody after her protected it the way that they have. Yeah. And at the like, least. That's I think that's a lesson that we have to learn from the Monterey Bay is like, it's worth preserving because like you can see, like, I mean, I think this is just like a theory that I have, but like potentially my sightings here are better. One, because the animals are feeding, so they have like calories and energy and whatever. But like, for sure, if a whale is healthy and not like the southern residents where it's worried about like dying and stuff, you know, you're gonna have more energy to expend like moving around and like having like amazing encounters and things like that. And that's not at all what it's about. Like, we got to protect the bay for the bay's sake, not for us enjoying its sake. But you know, the Monterey Bay is a testament to like why it's important to be very strict with protecting marine environments and preserving them. And you can see, like, definitely when you come here versus when you go other places, like you can see the difference in the ecosystem, and like you can see the difference in the way that the animals behave and how healthy the bay is in general. So, you know, just always something to be mindful of. Well, with the psychology, I'd be incredibly interested to see the difference too that would have on even the human populations that are around. It's the kind of thing even today. So my day job is a line cook, and at the bar that I work at, one of the managers like went to the back and we're cleaning out the house, just making sure everything is as polished as possible. But it's the kind of thing like when a place is clean, it's easier to keep it clean. Yes. So with regard to that, I can only imagine, like seeing the difference between in a place that is so like environmentally like healthy and rejuvenated, it's easier to keep it
up running, and then more than that too, like I can only imagine the effects that have on the human populations that are around when they're conscious about it, when they're thinking about it, versus in other areas, even around here, where it's, I was saying even before, it's not as a direct connection.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think so. And like, even if you don't have the opportunity to have that direct connection, like Carl Safina once said, like, you know, just start watching the birds in your backyard, or I can't remember like the exact thing that he said, but basically he was like, nature is everywhere. And like, you know, you don't have to go into the wild to see it. No. And like, you are in the wild. And like, we've definitely habitated a lot of areas and, you know, kind of overtaken this planet, but it's still there, you know. And also nature is so resilient, like, you know, because obviously I have the whole Breaching Extinction podcast and have like studied the southern resident issue in depth, and definitely I've read like a lot of other papers too about like other species that were endangered and how they bounced back and things like that, because I'm like, well, how are we going to do it for these whales? And like, if you give the animals what they need, they will bounce back for the most part. Like nature is fucking badass and it's resilient as hell. And like, it, like, I feel like if you do the right thing, there's no stopping it. But if you continue to do the wrong thing, then we're in a pickle, which we're in a pickle right now.
We are. Well, in a number of ways, in a number of areas. It all depends on the scope that you want to look at for that one, between climate change, the southern residents, or otherwise.
Exactly. Yeah.
I'll have to think about. Okay, so we have a little under 10 minutes left. There's two questions that there's one question that I had before, and then questions about yourself and what you'd want to tell to the public in general. The first one, you were talking about the 5 behaviors of whales when you go out. What are the 5 behaviors?
The 5 main behaviors that I see from humpbacks that I would like consider cool surface behaviors are obviously breaching, tail lobbing, like head slap or chin slap, peck slap, and then friendly whale.
What's friendly whale? That sounds like like an achievement.
Is the best behavior, or I don't know. It's the best one to experience.
Sure.
When the whale comes and swims by the boat really closely and just says hi, and then it's like, I've definitely left the boat like with whale snot just all over me. I actually got snotted on by an orca for the first time ever.
Really?
The other day.
That's not easy. Let alone like that never happens at all.
Yep. There was a male who is a California transient. He came right across, basically touched the bow, and it was not Bumper, the California transient that is known for doing that. It was a different one. Sure. And then he comes behind the boat, and I was just like, he's coming under. So I go over there, and then he pops up right next to us and just like spouts and then just like goes on his merry way. Crazy. So yeah. That's wild. But those are the behaviors that we typically see. Those are the 5 main behaviors that I would classify. I've been debating on whether or not I should include kelping in that, because I hadn't seen kelping until this season. But it is a thing. So maybe we all have 6 behaviors.
Well, you can have 6, but you did call it like the big 5. So it does make sense for those to be like the really, really solid, like the ones that you are, 1, most likely to see, but 2, like the most consistent at the least. Yeah. Consistent being used very loosely there. Yeah. Like once every month is a lot for some of them, I can only imagine.
Like a friendly whale is very rare. For sure, very rare. I definitely got super lucky last year and saw a decent amount of friendly whale behavior. But yeah, and there have been times where like I have to be like, okay, guys, like, because I can usually tell if it's about to happen. Definitely. Sometimes you can't, and they're just right there, and you're like, oh my god. But sometimes you can just see like they're slowly inching over, and a lot of times it's like a mom and a calf, and the calf is like, let me go say hi. Of course. But there have been a couple times where I'm like, all right, everybody, if the whale comes over here, you are legally not allowed to touch it. Yes. Like, because sometimes they do get that close. Yeah. But that's the key, is they get that close. Like if you will never get that close to a whale unless they want it to. Yeah. You will never have a good encounter with a whale where you get that close unless they allow it. But yeah.
Well, also too, I can only imagine, like, for anybody that's thinking like, well, what if you bring the boat really close? The only thing I can imagine is that if you try to bring the boat close to a whale that doesn't want to interact, all it will do is dive and swim away.
Literally.
Like, that's it.
My best encounters almost consistently have been when we are sitting in the water with the engines off.
Yeah.
And when we are one boat, like it's just us, or there's one other boat with us, like 1 to 2 boats.
Yeah.
Typically one, like almost all of my best encounters have happened when we're by ourselves, engines off, sitting there, you know? So I think that that's the thing is like, if the whale feels non-threatened by you, you know, if you make it a quieter environment, you increase the likelihood of that happening, of like seeing those cool things. And like, obviously we don't want to encourage the boats or the whales to come up to the boats like frequently or all the time, but like it is cool to get a quick pass, you know?
Definitely.
So, yeah.
All right. So in the spirit of that in general, if you right now you're going to be speaking to, like, we're talking to a bunch of people that I know personally are going to want to go whale watching at some point, like are looking to get out to the Pacific Northwest or California or other places to go and observe wildlife rather. If you had to not do your safety briefing, but do like this is what you should get excited. If you had to tell them something that would set them up for their trip, their journey, wherever they're going, when they're going to set expectations, or rather what to really look forward to and things they should be thinking about to just get the most out of the experience no matter what happens. What do you think you would go?
I think you definitely should look forward to being outside, you know, and I think it's so important to pay attention to the little things. And like, I've learned that from tide pools and docks of like, you know, there's a lot more details in nature that we're maybe not paying attention to when we're on the, like looking for an orca, you know, looking for a humpback. But there are a lot of other species that are just as amazing, that maybe don't have, you know, all the charismatic energy that those guys have, or all of the attention that the whales have. Like if you go to the San Juan Islands, you could see a bald eagle, and that's so cool, or a stellar sea lion. And like harbor seals are like super common, but they're still super awesome to see too.
Of course.
I would say just get excited to be in nature and like pay attention to the little things. Like take time to like look at the birds, or like if you see like a bug, or if you find yourself on a dock, just like stick your head over it and look in one spot and keep your eyes there for like a minute, and you'll see all of these little movements in the dock, and you'll see like all these different little critters that are in there, lots of invertebrates. But yeah, I think my biggest thing is just like get excited to be in nature. And I think go in with no expectations at all. Like just go in just knowing that you're going to go outside and that's it, you know? And you know, obviously be mindful of the animals that you could see, and like what is the most responsible way to interact with that animal, because it is species by species. Like there are some animals that are not affected by the same things that other species are.
Definitely.
But get excited to just be outside, and also get excited to find, you know, responsible tour operators, and things like that, and just like get inspired by something that maybe you don't expect to be inspired by. Like, for example, I just went to Mexico on a citizen science whale shark trip, and I was like super stoked about the whale sharks, of course. And I had no idea that blue-footed boobies were going to be there. And that was the highlight of my trip. I was like, oh my God, it's a blue-footed booby.
What's a blue-footed booby?
What? Fred?
Bro, come on. I am. Orcas are my thing. I haven't expanded much, I gotta say.
Well, okay. All right. So it's a really cool bird. It's a booby, which is a type of bird with blue feet.
Weird.
They're amazing.
That's
and then
awesome.
There were also frigate birds, and they like drink clouds and stuff. That's like really not the scientific way to like put it, but they do a bunch of weird things. But get to know species that like maybe you're not super interested in, because they're cool too.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to look up both of those now, or we're gonna have to have a call another point, because I have drinking clouds is wild, but blue-footed boobies is also just a hysterical name in general.
So good. It's so good. Yeah, you gotta like look at the pictures of their feet. They're like, when I was there, like they weren't like super duper blue.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, they're it's still cool. They're still really cool birds.
That's wild.
Yes.
Well, that's perfect. Well, before we sign off, I just want to thank you again for coming on for this hour. If you guys haven't yet, please check out Breaching Extinction podcast. Also, too, we have an ongoing best whales thing that's going to keep going.
Hashtag
It's me,
the
you,
best
and
whale.
hashtag the best whale. Right now,
Yeah.
it's killer whales.
Yes.
We'll see if it remains. I guarantee there's going to be more. But
we'll see. Yeah.
Well, you have your soft spot for humpbacks. I feel like you might alone bring that up.
I think that they're just objectively the best whale. From an objective standpoint, you know.
I mean, rightfully so. You've seen the full 5 with them. Not only that, but you've also, I feel like you've gotten more comfortable with humpbacks than I know Kendra or I have probably.
Yeah. I didn't expect to love humpbacks so much, but yeah. I never had a favorite animal until I met the humpback whale. Because all the animals are cool. That's the thing. They all are cool in their own way. But
Most
humpback
definitely.
whales are just objectively the best animal on the planet other than peaches. So
Yes, Peaches as a whole animal.
Is a whole animal.
Individually.
She is the best.
Our princess.
Yes. But thank you for having me. And
of course.
I'm always happy to answer people's questions or have conversations and whatnot. So feel free to reach out. But thank you for having me, and also continue to listen to Fred's podcast and learn more about orcas. I know I've definitely learned a decent amount about orcas from you too. So it's pretty cool.
Do you want to plug anything else? I leave a little space. Anything else you want to, whether or not?
Yes. So obviously the podcast, Breaching Extinction, but if you are interested in supporting really awesome institutions that are doing good things for the community and the environment, please check out the Vermilion Sea Institute. They do a lot of amazing stuff for whale sharks and for their community. They're really big on empowering their kids in the community to learn how to be environmental stewards. Like a lot of them don't know how to swim or snorkel, and they like teach the kids how to do that. And they need like scuba equipment. Well, not scuba, but snorkel equipment and like snacks for the kids and things like that. So just like, please go give them all your money.
The next paycheck going directly to that.
The next paycheck directly to the Vermilion Sea Institute. Thank you.
Yes, that's a beautiful thing to do.
Yes.
Well, that is absolutely wonderful. Once again, guys, I am the Orca Man. Thank you again, Erica. This has been absolutely phenomenal. And we will see you later.
Bye.
Boom. Wonderful. Bottom.